Anyone who has driven to Canberra will know the feeling which overcomes you on approach to our nation's capital. A feeling of bleak desperation. Driving around the edge of Lake George, you start to notice emotion and empathy, these things which usually help you make choices that are in alignment with your values. Well, they just start to vanish. And by the time you hit the first big roundabout that turns off to Fishwick, the space where your heart used to be is now as stark and foreboding as the brutalist concrete architecture rising all around you. But this feeling is not isolated to Canberra. I've experienced it in another seat of power, in Washington D.C. Much like the portion sizes offered in American restaurants, the buildings in Washington D.C. are unnecessarily enormous. Maybe it's to scare the shit out of foreign diplomats who arrive there hoping for a better shake of the sauce bottle, reminding them just how completely unimportant they are. It certainly worked on me. Standing next to the Capitol building, I felt like about the size and significance of a Lego man standing next to a couch. That is, if the couch also had snipers stationed on top of it, covering the arrival and departure of the president. It was among these mighty concrete sarcophagi that for 3 days I waited for a very important meeting. At the time, I had a job in music television and I was on a work junket across the USA. The artist that we were there in DC to interview, he wasn't some next big thing. Oh no, he was a very big thing. Maxwell's 1996 debut album, Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite, is largely seen as a pioneering work in the neo-soul genre. The tight arrangements, exceptional musicianship, elements of jazz, R&B and soul made it a profound critical and commercial success. That, and it was absolutely 100% the album you put on when it was routing time. If you're currently aged anywhere between 25 and 28, how old are you?
20.
Maybe. If you're currently aged anywhere between 25 and 28, there is a high possibility that one half of you lay waiting in your father's epididymis like a coiled spring, just biding your time until the middle eight of Maxwell's all-time sex soundtrack song, Till the Cops Come Knockin'. And when that final chorus hit, you exploded out of your dad's vas deferens with enough force to hurtle you through the very center of his prostate gland, shooting out of his urethra at such a velocity that no cervical mucus on earth could possibly be thick enough to hinder the rampant forward progress of your father's wriggly DNA. And when the end of the song had finally come, your parents now bathed in the delicious afterglow of the song Reunion softly playing on the bedroom boombox. Your wonderful mother made her way to the bathroom for the most interesting of all tactical wheeze. Your father drifting into a coma while she quietly annihilates millions of your would-be siblings in her post-coital ablutions. And yet you held on for dear life against any watery intervention on her part, largely thanks to the ferocious motility brought on by the rich chordal structures and ecstatic falsetto of Maxwell himself, as he promised your mother, on your father's behalf, I presume, "Sweet lady, don't you worry, ain't no end to what this ring wants to begin with you," proposing to her through song. And that lyric providing the final push deep into her fallopian tubes where the miraculous moment of your conception happened. So here we were in the Chocolate City, getting ready to interview this Washington-based baby maker, all about his brand new album. It's Sunday afternoon when we arrive and we head straight to the venue where he's playing that night when the phone call comes. Maxwell is unwell. The show's cancelled. The interview, well, it'll still be happening tomorrow. Fair enough, we're professionals, these things happen. Dropping our bags at the hotel, I let my road-hardened producer and cameraman lead the way towards dinner where I eat Vietnamese food for the very first time. Now, I don't know what to choose. They ordered for me. And slurping down my first ever pho, I relish in the soupy noodleness of it, the immense flavour and crunchy vegetables delights just swirling around my mouth as I contemplate the immense geopolitical forces and deep history of bloody conflict which allowed this restaurant to exist in this city, in this country, so I could eat this soup. Yeah, I'm really bad to have dinner with. I think this way a lot about food. So the next day, we just waited by the phone. We couldn't go anywhere because if the call came, we had to go. When it did finally ring mid-afternoon, it was Maxwell's manager asking to speak with me. So tell me about yourself, she asks. At first, I didn't really clock what was happening. I was just having a lively chat with this nice lady. And then she asked me about my work, how long I've been doing it, and tested me with some very specific questions about the new album. To which I answer with a very extended and quite nerdy rave about the brilliance of the legendary guitar player Wah Wah Watson, who was a long-time collaborator with Maxwell. Eventually, I figured this out. Never in any of the interviews I'd ever done had I needed to do an interview to do an interview. But this was an interview. What star sign are you? I'm an Aries. Great, I've loved speaking with you, and Maxwell will too. Okay. And I hung up, and the waiting continued. By the third day, the excitement of getting to chat with a man who many believe was making better Prince albums than Prince was making had been wiped from my mind. 3 days in a 3-star business hotel in the outer suburbs of a town full of bureaucrats is hard enough. And that's before you factor in how haggard we all were just from trying to survive relentlessly being hunted night after night by the natural enemy of the travelling TV crew, the minibar. Eventually, my boss called back to Sydney, pulled the pin. The record company got us flights out of there. But here is the quandary. Our flights were not until the next morning. And the next morning would look like this. 5 a.m. alarm, 6 a.m. pickup, 7 a.m. flight, 7 a.m. check-in, 8 a.m. flight, 9 a.m. landing in New York, get a rental van, get the camera gear into that van, battle Manhattan traffic, get downtown by 11 a.m., interview the band Incubus at 1 p.m., get back to the airport by 3 p.m., fly 6 hours back to LA, wait 3 hours at LAX, then fly 15 hours back to Sydney. That was going to be a long day, and none of us particularly wanted to spend our last night in the US in this mind-numbing hotel that smelled of broken political promises and the sad wanks of lonely lobbyists. So we took a vote. Who wants to fly back to New York City in the morning? Early start, terrible coffee, and poorly informed impulse purchases out of the Skymore catalogue? Nobody. Who wants to grab a $50 train ticket and be back in New York in 3 hours from now to have one final night in the city that never sleeps? Mate, it was unanimous. In making this choice, I personally consider only one thing. Both modes of transport would get us there, but only one was serving alcohol. It's important to inform you that as of right now, this very day, the 9th of March, by this Friday, I will be 15 years sober. However, at this point in my life, the one I'm telling you about, despite an already overwhelming body of evidence that I was really doing my best to ignore, I was in complete denial that I had a terrible relationship with alcohol. My choice to take the train was entirely and wholly based on the fact that this train had a well-stocked bar car in which I could sit and drink full-strength beers for 3 straight hours. It was a no-brainer. Taking Amtrak out of Washington is a little like listening to the Chattanooga Choo Choo song backwards. We left the Union Station, Washington, around about 2. In the dining car by Baltimore, we'd had quite a few. We sang the Rocky song in Philly. In New Jersey, it was Bon Jovi. By Pennsylvania Station, we'd forgotten how many syllables there were left to go. It was a solid 3-hour pre-game and quite the ramp up for a big night out in the greatest city in the world, a night which for various reasons I cannot tell you about. Well, to be honest, I can't tell you about it for the same reason that I can also not tell you about many other moments in my life, including, but not limited to, my 21st birthday, my 22nd birthday, my 23rd, 24th, 25th, 27th, 28th, 30th, no, actually 30th, I remember the 30th birthday, 31st, 32nd birthday, 33rd, 34th, 35th, and 36th birthday, my first wedding, and the entire second season of Australian Idol. I can't tell you about that night in New York because I cannot remember any of it. I do remember the next day, though. I woke up around 8:45. I think it's just I can hear this noise. I thought it was the sound of a large truck going over a road plate at the bottom of our hotel where the roadworks were. I yawned, got up to have a wee, flicked on the TV, and I just see this gaping, smoking hole in the side of the World Trade Center. I flick around and every channel's got a different angle of the same picture. I wake up my producer, Ben, I don't think we're going to interview Incubus today, mate. 1 minute later, Ben, me, and millions of people around the world watch on in horror as United Airlines 175 plows into the South Tower of the World Trade Center at 950 kilometres per hour. The choice that I'd made the day before was based on the availability of beer. That choice meant that we were not in the air when those planes were hijacked. Had we been flying, we'd have been diverted to North Carolina, Denver, or worse, Nova Scotia, where, despite the inconvenience of not being where we wanted to do, we might have ended up in a fucking Broadway show. And you've all just outed yourself as way nerdier about musicals than I am. We would have kind of been a bit inconvenienced, but eventually when we got back to Sydney, it would have been all right. The choice that I made put me close enough to ground zero that we were all coughing up black stuff for about 6 weeks and gave us a front row seat to the horror and carnage of the largest orchestrated terrorist attack in history. I was never the same after that day. My mental health declined rapidly. That choice led not only to a diagnosis of PTSD, but also kicked off a 10-year spiral of alcohol and drug abuse and was a large part of the destruction of 2 long-term relationships. I'm mostly better these days, but it's fair to say that choosing train over plane was a pretty pivotal choice, even though I didn't put too much thought into it. Of course, we can't think about every choice we make in a day like that. Something that will radically alter our lives. We'd never leave the house. We'd never choose anything. But it is, every now and again, it's worth reflecting that we never know which choices will put us in the path of an underpaid delivery rider riding an overpowered e-bike who's fucking around on his phone, and when he and his bike smash into you, killing you instantly and giving him a very low star rating. Nor do we know which choice will put us in the same grocery line as someone who turns out to be a person very, very worthy of being invited back to your home. So you too can fire up the bedroom boombox and seductively unsheath Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite from the CD case before hitting play and letting that magical music do its work. That's it.